The purpose of this video is to give a general overrun of the Aerosphere CO2 leak detection system. The Aerosphere system has these basic components. You have a CO2 sensor, which is going to be mounted 12 inches from the floor in any given leak potential, a 6-foot communication cord that will go between the sensor and the primary unit. You're going to have a 704 hazmat sign, which will be mounted at the exterior of any gas room or building, letting first responders know that there's a special asphyxiant with a health hazard of 3. You're going to have a warning sign, and you're going to have a CO2 alert sign, which will be mounted at the interior of the gas room next to your primary monitor. The CO2 alert sign will show your employees what will happen when each one of the 3 CO2 thresholds are exceeded. Your primary monitor has a digital display showing the parts per million for each sensor that's attached to it, up to 4 sensors. It's going to show the temperature at that sensor. It's also going to show your time and your date. Your primary unit also has 4 indication lights, which are normally blue under normal function. The normal function of a CO2 sensor is going to be somewhere between 350 and 650 parts per million. When increased levels of CO2 are detected, the blue indication lights change color from blue to yellow to orange to red as each threshold is exceeded. Furthermore, each primary unit has an audible beeper that increases and decreases in tempo as it raises and lowers through the threshold levels. The 3 threshold levels that are default programmed into the Aerosphere system are 5,000, 15,000, and 30,000 parts per million. If I take a canister of CO2 and I spray the CO2 sensor, simulating a leak, we can watch it step through each of the 3 levels. As we watch our parts per million rise, when it reaches 50% of the thirst threshold, this light will start to change color, indicating that we're reaching that. As it exceeds that, you start to get a beep. So I'm above 5,000 parts per million. I'm now above 15,000 parts per million. And now I'm above 30,000 parts per million. This is considered high alarm, at which point you should evacuate the area, open all interior, exterior doors, allowing for proper ventilation, and you should definitely call your service provider, letting them know that you have a high alarm CO2 leak. As this CO2 starts to dissipate, you can watch the sensing unit step down. Once again, right now we are at high alarm, which means that we've exceeded 30,000 parts per million. We're just stepped below 30,000 parts per million. As you can see, this indication light changed from red, orange, now yellow as it continues to step down. It will continue beeping at this tempo until we go below 15,000 parts per million. And as it gets closer to that second threshold, you can watch the indication lights start to change. So at 15,000 parts per million, this will turn back to blue. I'm going to decrease in the audible tempo for that alarm. It will continue at this tempo until we get below 5,000 parts per million. We've exceeded 50% of the second threshold, allowing this indication light to turn blue. We are just about to go below 5,000 parts per million, at which point the system will reset and you will get no more audible. And then this light will continue to change from red to yellow and will go back to blue when our parts per million reach 50% of the first threshold, which will be 2,500 parts per million. You see that all of the lights have turned blue, showing that we are below 50% of the first threshold, and that parts per million number will continue to decrease until it reaches normal levels of 350 to 650 parts per million. The most common reason that you would ever exceed 5,000 parts per million is going to be an empty bag in the box, which causes the pumping system to continue to run because it's going to be looking for syrup. The general course of action to take, of course, is to change that bag in the box, which will stop that runaway pump and will naturally decrease the levels down. When you start to reach higher levels of 15,000 to 30,000 parts per million, you're going to want to take larger action. At 15,000 parts per million, which can be considered a pre-indication of high alarm, you want to take a quick look for obvious noises or visual signs that you have a leak either at the tank or at the bag in the box or any sort of fitting in that area. However, when you reach 30,000 parts per million at high alarm, it is not an area that you're going to want to continue to stay in. You're going to want to evacuate that area per OSHA standards. You're going to want to open exterior doors allowing ventilation or air exchange for that area. And you're going to want to immediately call your gas service provider to let them know that you're at high alarm so they can come out and shut down your tank and figure out why you would have such a high leak.